Hi, this is Samina Shaker, and with me today I have the sitarist Anoushka Shankar. So join me as I welcome Anushka on Zoom.
Thank you.
Lovely to have you. And at the age of 9, you have started your journey as a sitarist. So tell me about it.
I started playing the sitar when I was nine, about 8 or 9, and I began touring when I was quite young as well. I did my first show when I was 13, and that was as part of my dear father's 75th birthday celebrations at the time. And so all of his students were taking place. So my parents said, "Well, what about you? You know, you're his youngest student, but you should be there too." So it wasn't like a plan to launch me professionally or anything like that. It was a birthday celebration. But after that one show, then I liked it. I did one more show. I did one more show. By the time I was 14, I was playing with him around the world everywhere. And so then I fell in love with it, and it became my love and my career.
And you have always joined your father. Like we have seen you, doing, being a part of his concerts, of his special video, events and all like that. For that one, music events. Tell me about your journey with him and what you have to say about, Pandit Ravi Shankar.
I mean, getting to learn from someone like my father is such a blessing. It's an incredible opportunity to learn the music from someone who has that type of knowledge and expertise and magic. So I learned from him from the beginning, which I was very lucky to do. And then the learning continued on stage, which is a part of our classical tradition. It's very normal to apprentice with your guru and to be alongside them learning the art of performance, of improvisation on stage as well as off stage. So that was my immersion experience as well. It was all kinds of things. It was an unbelievably fun and magical experience because it wasn't just learning the music. I also saw how incredible it felt to be playing it, to be on stage, to be sharing it with people. And that was something very seductive to me that I wanted to then be a part of myself. So, yeah, it was a really incredible experience.
But never did you reach at a stage where you felt like, you want to make a change in your career. Were you at that point ever, like where you thought about something like that?
So there's two things. One is before you make a decision to have a career. So at that point, as a teenager, as a child, like anyone, I had other things I loved, other interests. I studied classical piano quite seriously. So until I was about 16, 17, I thought maybe that could also be an option for me. Always loved writing. And so on the side, I did write columns for various publications. I published a book. I contributed to other books. But music was always the kind of first thing for me. And by the time I was 18, 19, as a young adult, I already had a career. I was already playing. So, as far as whether I then wanted to have a change, I have had moments of thinking about that, like anyone. Sometimes I think I've been touring for 25 years. Does it feed me the same way it used to? And the truth is that performing still feeds me the same way it used to. Even if, as an adult woman, as a mother of two kids, sometimes the logistics of touring, I don't tour like I used to when I was 20, 25, because that doesn't suit me anymore. So I have had to look at, the fact that music also involves maybe composing, scoring, those are things that I also love and try to take more of now to fit into my life. But I've never hit a point where I felt done with music, like I wanted to have a full change like that.
Now, I have to ask you this, Anushka, and it's quite a question where even I have this thought, you have come a long way and you have taken forward the legacy of, Pandit Ravi Shankar. Would you prefer that the same on your children, or would you let them, have their own careers, or, select something else altogether?
I mean, it's a great question, and it's very difficult for me to answer because I've made choices that are very different from the choices my parents made. And maybe I will regret that. Maybe there will come a day where I wish I passed on the music exactly the way it was passed to me. My choice has been to prioritize being their mother and to be having that close mother son relationship with each of my kids, and not to also try and be their guru, which I think I would find very difficult to find how to balance that closeness with that strictness. That has been my decision. And if they ever come to me, if either of them come and say they want to learn, then of course I would teach them. But I've made the decision not to force it on them. So we'll see.
What do you have to say about music in today's era and how it has evolved over the years? We do see different kind of music and even the kind of music bands which have become famous. What do you have to say on that?
I mean, music can and should always change, with every generation that comes forward, with every individual that plays music, we bring in a piece of us, a piece of our life. We respond to the world. So, of course, music is always changing, whether that's classical music or non classical music. There's always going to be newness, and there should be. I think that's really exciting, and I think that's what keeps music current for every generation, you know. As far as what's been happening in India, I think it's been really great this last 10, 15 years. I think there's been a real opening up. There was a real limitation before, that there was kind of film music and that was it. And then we also had our classical music and that was it. And now there's just so much more available. There's so many more opportunities for people to express who they are artistically that feels integral to them. And I think that's brilliant.
But I have to also ask you that, even classical music in the current setup is very difficult to even find that voice, or make that relevant, because people are consuming too many different music. There is Instagram Reels also, for that matter. What do you have to say on that?
I mean, it's difficult. The irony is that I often get asked to speak on classical music as if I'm some kind of representation of classical music, partially because I'm my father's daughter and because of the instrument I play. The irony is that I started making crossover music when I was 25. So I, to an extent, left the classical music to do exactly what you're saying, because I needed to make music and write music that I felt like represented the whole of who I was, with all my multicultural influences, with my modern life. I needed to make music for me and for my peers and my listeners that felt like it represented that. So it is a mix of sounds, a mix of influences. And I think when that's done with integrity and when it's honest, I think that's a really beautiful thing that happens. I think as far as what you talk about with the reels and so on, I think it's been really interesting seeing a lot of people presenting the actual classical music in ways that can then be absorbed in ways that are more common now. So you'll see lots of people having those kind of viral successes with quick videos and all of that. And I think that's great. I don't think it's bad. I only think it's maybe tricky if that replaces something else, because I'll see like a lot of artists, maybe it can take your focus too much. Even as someone like me, I can also fall into that trap where you think you have to make something for a video, that'll get attention, and it'll change the way you play and the way you present because you're trying to do that. And that's a surface level, so if you're doing that in order to gain the followers and get your name out there, that's amazing, but be careful not to replace your deeper work as well away from that.
Especially like in current times, what is also happening, Anushka, it's more like when we see there is AI which has come into development, and music for that matter, especially voices for that matter, are replaced using AI. So even if I'm talking to you, my voice could be replaced and used for something else altogether. That is leading to a lot of concerns. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it is really concerning, not just in music, but across, I hear my writer friends talking, I hear my acting friends talking, musician friends. For all of us, it's, anyone in the creative arts, it's worrying. On one side, I'm confident that at least thus far, it's been proven that no AI can replace past a certain point an original thought by a human. Yeah. But as you say, our commodities, our voices, our faces can be taken. And I think, I really hope that like legislation catches up with technology, because we found, at the time of the internet coming up, that legislation didn't catch up with technology, and there were ramifications. And I think it's really important to be looking at that side. And beyond that, I say I'm a mix of confident and concerned, because I don't think it replaces our creativity.
That's very true, because it just cannot like replace instantly, but there are certain features which are very harmful too. And coming back to your music, when we talk about the way you present yourself, what is that one message you try to convey whenever you are there, in front of your audience?
I think whenever I present my own shows, there's like a sense of authenticity that feels really, really important. Like I can't present my shows in a way that doesn't feel like who I really am. I can't wear clothes that don't feel like who I really am, even if it might look, I really have to feel like my audience can believe me, when I'm up there. That feels really important, that it's honest. And then the other thing that feels perhaps more important is a lot of my music, is very varied. And I do go into a lot of dark spaces. I draw from a lot of troublesome inspirations, let's say. Like my music can come from pain. But I've never left a show or left an album or left an audience without hope at the end. So it's like, even if a show really goes into those dark places, so people have a place to feel those emotions, I always like have to end with hope. That feels really important to me because I just feel like without hope, where are we? Like none of us will take any action if we don't have some shred of hope. So if we ever want to make a difference, if we ever want the world to be better, it has to come with like a little sense of hope.
Yeah. And even Anushka, when you see the music which has been produced, say, in the US versus in India, what difference have you noticed so far?
I mean, I don't think questions like that are easy to answer because you can't generalize about music in the US or music in India. You know, what are we talking about? Mainstream artists? Are we talking about people with a lot of money? Are we talking about people in niche genres? I think these kind of generalizations aren't really helpful. And I think music has suffered from being boxed into genres and ideas throughout history anyway. So, like, I prefer not to generalize.
Talking about you being a Grammy Award nominee, tell me about that, how it has been whenever you have been nominated for Grammy. And it's been 9 times, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
And recently we just read that even PM Narendra Modi has been nominated for one of his songs, which has become viral basically. But I have to ask you about yours and tell me about it. Like, how does it feel?
I mean, each time I've been nominated feels very exciting, very special, very joyful. It's not less after the first time. The first time was obviously special because there was a different shock to that one. But every single one of them has been exciting, has been an honor. And then every loss is to some degree disappointing or whatever. But I also have been nominated enough times that I've had to do the work there and look at that and realize ultimately that whether you win or you lose, the value of the work hasn't changed. The response of a listener hasn't changed. So it has commercial impact, but that's about it, really.
Personally, what do you prefer listening? The kind of music, what do you prefer?
It's really wide ranged. I listen to music across most genre, and it's more based on mood. Like, do I need something that helps soothe me because I'm feeling troubled, or do I need something to dance to while I'm getting ready, or do I need something that really makes me feel like kind of groovy and deep and connected? Like, kind of based on like going from a mood, then I'll have pretty varied playlists. There might be a mix of all kinds of genres on there if it has the same mood.
And is Anushka Shankar a fan of Bollywood music? Or like, have you heard Bollywood music for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up listening to a lot of the old Bollywood music and kind of to an extent watching current movies. And sometimes it's amazing. You know, there's some really incredible songs out there. And I do get really sappy and nostalgic about the old music as well.
Yeah. And talking about your upcoming projects, what are you focusing on more?
Well, I'm releasing a series of mini albums right now, which is like a new approach I'm trying out about each chapter. I'm calling them chapters, and with each one, I get into a room with a new producer, a new collaborator, it's totally blank slate, and see what comes up in that room. So I've released chapter 1, which is called Forever for now, with Aruj Aftab and Niels Fram. And chapter 2 will be coming out in the spring, chapter 3 later in the year. So it's been a really fun creative process, and alongside that, I'm touring more extensively than I have since the pandemic. So it's felt really good to be back on proper tours again and really performing. I just did a massive tour in North America. I'm looking forward to touring in India in January very much. I'll be in Europe and Australia after that. So yeah, it feels really good to be performing like that again.
Well, most of us know, and I would like to highlight this, is your association with NGOs, and you have always been there as an activist. You have spoken, you have raised your concerns and voice for women, also for that matter. Tell me something about that.
I mean, I don't think I do nearly as much as like my full-time activist friends who work for those NGOs and work, in the rooms where things happen. I think those are the heroes. But I think those of us with a name or a platform also have an opportunity to amplify messages or to do what we can. And again, I've just always, what I do privately is different. Any organization I want to donate to or support, that's different. I can do as many as I like. But when it comes to lending my voice publicly, I think people can get fatigued if you speak too much. So I've had to find over the years a way to really hone in on what I feel like I connect with and to really share and connect publicly there. So as you say, my obviously as a woman, women's issues affect me deeply. So violence against women, domestic violence, all those kind of situations, but also as a human, as a mother, children, and therefore, of course, refugees, human rights when it comes to refugees and how they're affected. That's kind of the area where I might lend my name a bit more publicly, whether it's doing work or being a representative in any way like that.
Are you also liking the fact, and it's not about liking, but you somewhere feel good about India being open now to accepting mental health concerns and talking about it. Earlier it would be like just hide, it would be like just hide the matters, or even when something would happen to women also, for that matter, especially domestic abuse or for children also, people would always hide that. Now you're liking the fact that it's not about liking, because it's a very deep topic, to be honest, but at the same time people are out there talking about it. It's not in the hiding, or it's not like the women are treated badly, or the children who are going through that.
As you say, it's not about liking, but it's an essential step, right? You can't fix something when you're not admitting it's happening, and that was why, as you know, I mean, 10 years ago, I shared my story of child abuse, and at that time, nobody, or a handful, 2, 3 people maybe, had spoken, and so there wasn't even that support network of how to do it. I just did it because it felt important. Like, how can we ever take steps forward if everyone's always pretending there's no problem, and that shame is so corrosive and so destructive. And so I have definitely seen that change across the board, whether it comes to, violence and abuse, or mental health, recovery, addiction, which is, again, another area that I've been speaking about for years. It's really beautiful to see people be able to speak more, because it's healing, and when people speak, other people hear something that maybe they thought they were alone in, and they can then connect, and they can look for healing, and it has a ripple effect, which is really powerful.
Well, that's interesting. And before I let you go, I have to ask you about your Lollapalooza event. And everyone is excited for that. And it's coming to Bombay, to India for the second time.
I'm really excited to play Lollapalooza for the first time here in India. I love my experience of playing in festivals in general, because of the type of music I play, the instrument I play. Switching venues and being in a kind of outdoor space where people are a bit more relaxed and less intimidated, it always changes the atmosphere. People feel more able to connect that maybe wouldn't come into a concert hall. So I always, have really great memories of any festivals I've played, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
And I'm myself looking forward to hear you over there, and I'm definitely going to be a part of it. Thank you so much, Anushka, for such a lovely interview, and I'm looking forward to see more of your work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.